Hey, everybody, welcome to the Succeed Without Selling Salon. I am here today with Debbie Fay of Bespeak Presentation Solutions, and she is going to talk with us about remote presentations, which now all of us are doing, whether we want to or not. So, Debbie, will you tell the listeners and the watchers about Bespeak, please?
Sure. I am the founder of bespeak Presentation Solutions. It is a public speaking, coaching, training, and presentations consulting company, which I began in 2006. And in that time, I have coached and trained hundreds, well over 1,000 people at this point, to become better, more effective speakers. And I have been doing this remotely just about since I started my business, because from very early on, number one, I was working with people internationally. And two, I was approached about the second year I was in business with a company that was producing webinars, even in 2008 or 9. They were producing webinars, which of course are presentations that have to be delivered remotely. So I've been doing this for a long time. I was not coaching others very often to do it this way, because to your point, when you had the choice, you wanted to be live and in person. Now that's really pretty much not an option.
Okay, so there's webinars and there's presenting remotely. Is it the same thing, or what are the nuances, the differences?
Yeah, it's weird. I think a webinar, one thinks of as more instructional, when you're going to be learning something, whereas a remote presentation would probably be something more like a sales pitch. Or it could even be that you're in a meeting, an internal meeting at your company, and you're going to have a mini presentation to update everybody about your department or your project. That kind of thing is a presentation. Something that you're delivering that's educational would be considered a webinar.
Okay, cool. So with all of these people working from home now, it feels like now there is value in people doing these remote presentations internally, right? Because they're not in the same space.
Yep.
So where some of your clients weren't in the same space to begin with, now we have all of these people who, wow, this is new.
Right.
So, having a departmental meeting or department heads meeting has changed. Yep. So, if I have a small business and I've got, say 5 managers, how do I, how would you suggest I get them to be delivering virtually so that there's value in it?
Right. Great question. And by the way, I really believe that with a lot of this stuff, meeting remotely, presenting remotely, if you put some of the things I'm suggesting in place now, they're only going to make your meetings, once we are on the other side of this and we're back to meeting and presenting live and in person, these suggestions that I'm about to give will only make those live in person meeting and presentations that much better, that much more effective. So for example, as an owner of a small business, or a CEO, COO of a small business, I would send out an agenda to everybody ahead of time. Let your department heads know that you're expecting them to speak. Give them an outline of what you, a skeletal outline of what you expect to hear from them. Not nitty gritty. You don't need to get in the weeds, but an overview so they know what it is you want to hear at the meeting. And then, critically important, give them a time frame. And if it's me, I shave a minute off what I think I can afford to give them in terms of time. Okay. And then when you get to the meeting, the first time, maybe you let it play out and you see how everybody does. If you find that people are abusing the time frame, then in preparation for the next meeting, you say to them, look, gang, I understand that you're eager to share where your departments are right now. And I understand that it's tougher because we're not meeting in person. However, in the interest of time for our next meeting, when you have 2 minutes left, I am going to let you know. And when you're at the 10-minute mark, I am going to let you know, and we're going to end it 1 minute after that.
Okay.
And by the way, you have to frame it, this proposal, if you will, like we would frame any successful proposal, with what's in it for them to do with the way you're proposing. So
Yeah.
if you're smart, what you're going to say to them is, I know how much work you all have to do. It's my mission to keep the workday within 8 to 5, despite the fact that you're in your own home. And because of that, I am going to be respectful of all of your time and keep us to these time frames. Now they see what's in it for them to do it the way you're suggesting.
Yeah.
So if you just do that, your meetings are going to be tighter, and they're going to be more productive and results producing. And of course, then everybody gets in the habit of doing that. You get back to live meetings, people will hopefully stay within those parameters.
Yeah, boy, I can see that. So when you prefaced it with that, and then you started saying what the suggestions were, I totally got it. I could see, oh, well, then when you're back in person, they've learned, this is how we do it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, so I've had people say different things about like different platforms. Do you have preferences and, about where people should be doing this? Like, should they be using Zoom? Should they be using Microsoft Teams? Does it matter?
I've not used Microsoft Teams. I've used Google Hangouts, WebEx, another one that's not coming to mind, and Zoom. I prefer Zoom. I think since they put their security measures in place, I never had a problem to begin with, but now you can have a password. In fact, it's defaulted to have a password. I find Zoom the most user-friendly.
Okay.
Just everything you can do with it, from the gallery to the Q&A to the icons where people can just do a thumbs up or raise their hand with an icon if they don't want to raise their hand. All of that kind of stuff, I find it very user-friendly. I have found, you're asking me my opinion,
Yeah.
I find WebEx and Google Hangouts to be very clunky. And I have to say, in the last 5 months or so that we've all been doing this, I've had that kind of feedback from my clients and others for whom I've been giving webinars and helping with presentations. The feedback's the same.
Yeah, I hear the same thing. And I've heard that Microsoft Teams isn't great. I haven't used it. Someone just reached out to me. I'm going to be doing a program in October, and they said, we use Microsoft Teams, but if you have a preference, let's go with that. I'm thinking, okay, haven't used it. Don't want to try it out on these guys, right? So,
right. Yeah, that's
no.
terrifying.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. And then there's another one. There's Adobe Connect that I actually sat in on a training, and when there's some of them are just not user friendly. They're just sort of not intuitive,
right?
Which just makes it harder for the presenter to pay attention to everything.
Exactly.
There's a lot of moving parts.
Exactly, and that's what you don't want. You don't want. I've had people say to me they twist themselves into pretzels with 3 different screens, thinking that's going to make the presentation more effective. But one of the most important things that you can do in a remote presentation is to be looking at the camera.
So hard to do.
It's very hard to do. And I'll tell you something, depending on how long this goes on, I'm going to be really interested in the cognitive research that's done on the other side of this, to see if it's rewired our brains a little bit as far as having conversations and not looking at the thumbnail of the human, instead looking at the camera. Because right now, talking to you, I'm looking at my camera. I am not looking at the video of you. Because and I'll do this so that your viewers see what happens, and you will too. If I look at the video of you, now you don't feel like I am looking at you. You're wondering why I'm looking away from you.
Yeah.
So it's critical.
So weird.
Yeah. And by the way, on Zoom, when you're using a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation, and then your audience is in a column, typically, they're very small over to the side.
Yeah.
it's really hard because your impulse is, of course, to be looking over to check on them. But when you do that and you're talking, they're thinking, why is she looking over to the side of the screen? So you must look at the camera in order for your audience to feel that they're connecting with you.
Okay. Yeah. So I do this thing with these 3 other women. We're doing the sales program, and one of them, the 4 of us were on a Zoom. We were having a meeting, and one of them goes, "Okay, wait, I just have to ask a question." So she turns to one of the others and she goes, "Where's your webcam?" The woman goes, "It's here." And she goes, "You are looking down." Like, it's just like, you have to stop doing this. And so we were trying to, train her, to look up. And I was like, "Okay, wait, you have to tell me where I'm looking, because I can't see where I'm looking. And I need to know where you think I'm looking." She said, "You're looking at your camera." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm looking but I'm far enough away. And with my glasses, it's hard to tell."
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Yeah, I don't trust. I mean, that's good for me to know, because I'm pretty religious about looking at the camera.
Yeah.
And by the way, for your listeners and viewers who have iPads, the iPad camera is down in the corner. And so you will see people that are using Zoom on their iPads, and they're looking here and they're talking at their camera here, I guess. It just looks very odd. So ideally, you want your camera to be, if you're not using a laptop or something where the camera is in the center top of the screen, you want to then put your camera, excuse me, there,
so
that you're actually looking at your audience.
Okay. All right. Okay. Here's another question for you. So let's talk about webinars for a minute. So, because I have to say, I hated doing webinars before COVID, because you can't see the people you're talking to. I always felt like I was alone in a canyon somewhere talking to myself.
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of, right? So, but since COVID, more and more people have been doing webinars on platforms like Zoom, where you can be there with your presentation. For me, it makes all the difference. But what are you finding when it comes to that change?
Yeah, it helps me. I feel exactly the same way, because for years, as I said, I did webinars where on WebEx, where you couldn't see a soul. It's just you didn't see yourself either on the platforms that I was on, because of those clients. It was just the PowerPoint deck.
Yeah.
And me talking, and I would put so much energy into it because of that. And I normally put a lot of energy in my presentations anyway. I swear, after the presentation's over, I felt like I needed to go lie down. I was just exhausted. It was so much more tiring.
Exactly.
I kind of stumble out of my office after that, like, oh, I need water, food. It's insane.
Yeah.
I still have a little bit of that. By the way, this is another thing. So right now I'm talking to you in my office. This is my this is my office. It's always my office, but I created this corner for Zoom meetings because I can get more light here, and because I can make it more interesting. There's just a blank wall if I'm really sitting at my desk the way I normally would. But when I am presenting, I have a studio that's actually in my kitchen, that's in the pantry part of my kitchen, because there I can stand and present, which is what I would be doing if I were in front of a group of people, number one. And number two, I can be right in front of a window, and real natural light is the best kind of light you can have to present in front of. You always want to be front lit. You want the light coming in front of you. You can see now that as I move my head, you can see the light that I'm using, a halo light in my office. When I present in a webinar, I'm using the natural light that's coming in from outside. I'm standing. And so in that case, that gives me full use of my diaphragm. When you move a little bit on your feet in a presentation, it's not as distracting. I don't know if you've ever been an attendee of a webinar where the presenter is sitting in an office chair that's on wheels, and they're going like this.
No.
It's just, oh my God. Yeah, it's really bad. It's kind of like you're in a scary ride in the amusement
Yeah.
park, and they're kind of a clown, but in no pain. It's just, yeah, please stop, please stop. So that's a thing. If you move a little bit when you're standing, it's just not going to do that.
Yeah, right.
The thing I do like about Zoom is that I can see a panel of my audience on the side. You're still not seeing, I mean, I'm not seeing everybody. So there's that. What I would love for Zoom to do, and as yet I don't think they've done it, I really want a scenario where I can have my slides here on one screen, not on multiple screens, on one screen,
Yeah.
slides, and then my audience.
Oh.
The whole gallery.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
that would be great.
I'm sure they're going to,
Right.
I bet that's coming.
I can't help wondering. Now I'm gonna have to do a little research, because I would wonder if that's already a thing. Did you ask if that was? Yeah,
No,
you
I
should
haven't.
suggest
I don't know how to ask. I should. Yeah. In fact,
because their customer service is pretty good. I mean, it's sort of behind because there's millions of people using it now, but they do
try it.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah.
So one other thing, if I can squeeze it in here, I'm not sure how much time we have. This is the other thing that's really, really important. Being front lit is really important. Looking at the camera is really important. The other thing that I would urge your viewers and listeners to keep in mind is this. It's just critically, critically important. In the past, when you were presenting live and in person, you could get away with slides of bullets that didn't animate. They're still not visual aids for your audience, but because you were live and in person, you were really the star attraction. And so your audience could choose to completely ignore your slides and just pay attention to you. Now that we are presenting remotely, if you have a PowerPoint presentation, a PowerPoint deck, we call it, that you're going to be using, you cannot have slides of bullets, and absolutely you cannot have slides of bullets that don't animate. And I'll tell you why. Because your slides are now the center attraction. You're in a little box somewhere on the side of your audience's screen. And when they're looking at bullets, they are reading the bullets, and then they're going to pick up their phone and surf Instagram. Your slides have to be visual. They need to be a synergistic component. They can never make sense on their own. They should never be something that has to be read, because we can't read and listen at the same time. We can't. It's the same processor in working memory that both reads language and listens to language. It's that one processor, and it cannot do those two things at once. Okay. So for all of those reasons, so if you've got slides that are self-evident and you've sent them ahead of time, and then they get on the presentation and they see that all you're doing is reading or paraphrasing what the bullets are, they're going to get off. Yeah. Or they're going to remain on, but they're just going to bring their phone over and start, answering their emails. Of course, right. You've lost their attention. You have to create slides that have what I call the factor. The audience should look at the slide and think, because they cannot figure out what they're looking at. They need you to explain it to them. So that's synergy. When you plus your visual aids are actually even more than the true value of each of you together. Okay. Wow. That's a successful presentation. That is, and by the way, that's a successful presentation live and in person, but remotely it is become much more critical. Much more critical to have your slides truly be visuals that help you to explain what it is you're talking about. That's what they should be. Okay. Okay. Thanks for that. That is huge. So we're toward the end of our time, and I put a banner across here that says, they can reach out to you at dfay@bespeakpresentations.com. I was going to say this at the beginning, but I decided to wait and see if people were going, wow, that's weird. Those two look alike and they sort of sound alike. And that's because we're sisters. Yes, we are. I mean, some of you already know us, so you know that's true. But for those of you who don't, Debbie's my sister.
So, and so, you know, I know I'm biased, but even if she weren't my sister, she's awesome at what she does. I've learned
Thank
a
you.
ton from her, and now so have you. So
Thank you. Thank you. Same as, and you know, I think if anybody reads your bio, they know you started your business in 2006, same time I started mine. I could not have done it without you. I had never started a business. I had never thought about starting a business until I started this business. And so for everybody who's considering getting your book, I had the benefit of years of coaching, you know, when I needed it, which was awesome. I've read the book twice, and I knew that from coaching with you. And so I cannot recommend the book highly enough. I mean it. People should read it and then read it again. And then maybe read it again. I'm telling you, every time you read it, you're going to go, oh, wow, yeah, that makes sense. So there's just a ton in there. It's very, it's dense, not in a bad way, in a great way. There's a lot of really great information. I highly recommend it.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. And this was not a paid advertisement. Let me just say, I didn't know she was going to do that.
No.
So
Yeah.
thank you so much for being in the Salon. I so
My
appreciate
pleasure.
it.
Anytime.
Next week, we are going to be talking about podcasting with Shan Vanderlee of, I'm going to butcher it, Podcast Bath Media. She's awesome. She knows just about everything anyone would ever need to know about starting a podcast, being successful with the podcast, and all that. So if that's something you're interested in, come on over.
Great.
And if you can't watch live, this will be shared repeatedly. So thank you. Thanks, Debbie. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye. Be safe, everybody.
Yeah.